Imagine a pride celebration. You probably picture vibrant colors, lots of joy, maybe streets just full of rainbows.
Yeah, the usual scene.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if we told you that in July 2025, in a major European capital, Budapest, reports say over 200,000 people defied an outright ban on their Pride March?
It's quite a number. Sources called it the biggest pride demonstration there in 30 years. A real act of resistance.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. Hungary, under Prime Minister Viktor Orbán,
Yeah.
and what reports describe as a systematic strategy against LGBTQ plus rights.
A strategy that critics say is, well, cleverly disguised, often framed as protecting the family or protecting childhood.
So to unpack this, we've looked at official reports, quite a bit of research, and we also have this really compelling firsthand account from someone who was actually there in Budapest.
Right, that gives us a valuable ground-level perspective on, the atmosphere, the tension, but also that defiance you mentioned.
Our goal here is to sort of break down the legislative tactics used in Hungary, see how they echo strategies used earlier in Russia, and look at how this kind of rhetoric seems to be spreading among certain far-right movements globally.
And we'll touch on the historical weight of it all, too. It's important context.
Definitely. So let's start with that Budapest Pride, July 2025. Banned by the authorities, yet over 200,000 people reportedly marched peacefully. What does that huge turnout tell us, especially being the biggest in 3 decades?
Well, it suggests a significant pushback, doesn't it, despite the official stance? And what's really striking is the atmosphere described, very different from other European capitals.
So,
Well, reports say Budapest was almost completely devoid of the usual public symbols, like rainbow flags. Participants apparently took serious precautions.
the cautions, like what?
Our source mentions specific safety advice people were given. Carry a lawyer's number, wear long sleeves, possibly for protection, even bring things like a handkerchief and baking soda.
Baking soda for tear gas.
That seems to be the implication. It really highlights the level of perceived risk, the fear of potential clashes, maybe with police or even counter-protesters.
And the authorities were directly involved in creating that climate, right?
Yeah.
The police officially banned the parade?
Yes, citing a new child protection law that the ultranationalist government had approved. So it was a direct governmental block on peaceful assembly.
That first-hand account you mentioned earlier, what details did it provide?
It's quite telling. For example, a delegate coming from Rome said their luggage was searched specifically for an LGBT flag upon arrival.
Wow.
And attendees reportedly got these official government warning letters, explicitly stating the march was illegal, mentioning fines, even potential imprisonment.
Imprisonment for marching.
That was the reported threat.
Yeah.
And contrast that with the fact that neo-Nazi counter-marches were apparently authorized to happen at the same time.
That's a stark contrast.
Yeah.
You also mentioned pervasive censorship. Any examples that really stand out?
Well, the one about Hungarian state television is quite something. They were reportedly caught actually blurring rainbow flags in background footage when reporting on Pride events.
Blurring flags.
Yeah, it just shows how deep the effort to sort of erase LGBTQ plus visibility goes, even visually in the media. And this censorship, this fear, it all ties back to the legislation.
Right. Let's pivot to that legislation then. This child protection law from 2021 seems central. How did that come about?
It was controversial from the start. Introduced as an amendment to an anti-pedophilia bill, which immediately caused alarm.
Because it conflated the two issues.
Exactly. It effectively banned any positive mention or representation of homosexuality or gender identity to anyone under 18. Our sources say it explicitly linked homosexuality with sexual crimes, treating its showing or promotion in media, books, schools, ads, basically like child pornography.
I can imagine the reaction to that.
Oh, absolutely. Immediate outcry internationally. Various EU countries called it discriminatory, a violation of fundamental rights, and the Hungarian Pride organizers themselves. Their response was blunt. This is not child protection. This is fascism.
Strong words. Did the government stop there, or did they build on this law?
They continued. In April 2023, they brought in what critics call the snitching law.
Snitching law.
Yeah. It reportedly allows any citizen to anonymously report same-sex families or even parents who support their child's gender identity if they're seen as not conforming to the constitutional role of marriage and family.
So neighbors reporting neighbors. Institutionalized surveillance.
That's how critics describe it, turning private lives into something the state, or even just fellow citizens, can police.
And these laws, they weren't just standalone acts, right? There were constitutional changes underpinning them.
Correct. Amendments were passed in 2020 and 2023. One key change defined a person's sex strictly by birth. A person is either man or woman, no room for gender identity.
And the 2025 amendment.
That one reportedly added language prioritizing a child's right to adequate moral development. Critics argue this was specifically crafted to provide the legal justification needed to ban events like the Pride Parade.
So you've got the foundational laws, the constitutional backing, and then measures to enforce it, like criminalizing protest.
Precisely. In March 2025, they passed an express law modifying the assembly law. Basically, it allows penalties for any event deemed to violate that 2021 child protection law.
What kind of penalties?
Fines up to 200,000 forint, that's around 550 USD. Ironically, the money reportedly goes to a child protection fund, and organizers could face up to a year in prison.
And this passed despite opposition.
Reportedly, yes, Orbán's Fidesz party pushed it through despite significant protests against it.
It's also interesting how these laws are named.
Right.
You know, a family protection law that targets LGBT families, an anti-pedophilia law used to restrict discussion of homosexuality.
It's a pattern, analysts point out. Using these seemingly positive or protective terms, child protection, family values, to mask restrictive, discriminatory policies. It makes them harder to challenge, perhaps more palatable to some segments of the public.
It sounds like a very calculated approach. And, as you hinted earlier, this Hungarian strategy, it didn't exactly come out of nowhere, did it? There are echoes of tactics used elsewhere.
Absolutely. You really have to look at Russia to understand the blueprint. Orbán's tactics seem to closely mirror Russia's playbook, particularly their 2013 law.
The gay propaganda law.
That's the one. Officially, it was about protecting minors from propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations. It banned positive public expression about homosexuality aimed at minors. Sound familiar?
Almost identical phrasing to the Hungarian law, based on what you've said.
Very similar. And just like in Hungary later, the Russian law immediately started shaping public discourse by linking homosexuality with pedophilia.
How did that play out in Russia?
Well, reports show high-ranking officials, state media, they started using derogatory language, calling LGBT people perverts, child abusers. Even Vladimir Putin, around the Sochi Olympics, made that infamous comment about gay people needing to leave children alone. It created a very hostile environment.
And did that hostile environment translate into real-world consequences?
Tragically, yes. Sources report a noticeable rise in violence against LGBTQ+ individuals after the law passed. Vigilante groups like Occupy Pedophilia reportedly emerged, luring and assaulting gay men.
In the authorities.
Often failed to intervene effectively, according to reports. Plus, public LGBT events were consistently banned or broken up, forcing the community much further underground.
You mentioned earlier that things escalated in Russia more recently, especially during the war in Ukraine.
Yes, significantly. In December 2022, they expanded the propaganda law. Now, it bans any positive mention of LGBT relationships, even between adults. No more targeting just minors.
A total ban on visibility.
Essentially. And this intensification was reportedly tied into a broader narrative, nationalist, anti-Western. Putin reportedly accused the West of moving towards open Satanism. The head of the Orthodox Church even reportedly blamed pride parades for the war in Ukraine.
So, looking at both Hungary and Russia, based on our sources, how is homophobia being used politically?
The analysis suggests it's a tool for social control, a distraction. Frame the LGBT minority as a dangerous foreign influence, something undermining traditional values. It helps consolidate power, rally a certain base, and shift focus away from, say, economic problems or corruption.
Which brings us to the global picture. Because this isn't just Hungary and Russia operating in isolation, is it? This rhetoric seems to be spreading.
Not at all isolated. The language, the natural family, defending religion, protecting children, fighting gender ideology, you hear it from various far-right leaders and movements across the globe.
Is there evidence of actual coordination between these groups?
Sources suggest yes. Some analysts talk about a reactionary international, where these groups support and sometimes even finance each other. There are reports, for instance, of Orbán's government indirectly funding Spain's Vox party to the tune of millions of euros.
And the slogans are often interchangeable, aren't they? Like Giorgia Meloni in Italy. Yes to the natural family, no to the LGBT lobby. Yes to sexual identity, no to gender ideology.
Exactly. It's like they're reading from the same script sometimes, and you see echoes everywhere.
Where else?
Well, Argentina President Javier Milei at Davos in January 2025 reportedly linked gender ideology directly to child abuse and pedophilia, Again, that false link.
Despite evidence showing otherwise.
Yes, data consistently shows most child abuse occurs within families by heterosexual males. But the rhetoric persists. Think back to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, too, his openly homophobic comments, the scaremongering about gay kids in school.
And the U.S.
Definitely. You see the rise of anti-woke and anti-trans rhetoric, particularly within parts of the conservative movement, including the Trump movement. The use of terms like groomers against LGBT educators or activists, that's straight out of the Russian playbook of leave our children alone.
And that translates into policy too, right?
Absolutely. In 2022-2023, dozens of laws were reportedly passed in conservative U.S. states, banning books or diversity discussions in schools, restricting healthcare access for trans youth, even censoring drag performances. And almost always, the justification given is child protection.
So it seems like there's a conscious strategy here. Ultra-conservative groups sharing tactics, maybe meeting at events like the World Congress of Families.
That's what the sources suggest, a shared narrative of a supposed progressive plot to destroy the family, corrupt children, and they position themselves as the defenders against this threat.
Is this just about homophobia and transphobia, or is it part of something bigger?
Many analysts argue it's bigger, part of a broader authoritarian project. You pick an easily demonized minority, rally a supposed moral majority against them, and use that to justify tighter social control, less dissent, more state power.
And Russia's role in this?
Russia, under Putin, is often seen as pioneering this model on the international stage, positioning itself as a defender of traditional Christian civilization against a supposedly decadent liberal West. The Moscow-Budapest connection is seen by many as a key ideological and financial hub for spreading this worldview.
This leads to a really serious point about history. Some people might hear all this and think, okay, it's bad, but it's just words. Or, we're not back in the 1930s, there aren't concentration camps. How do our sources address that perspective?
They caution strongly against that kind of dismissal. History provides a chilling lesson here. And Nazism didn't start with gas chambers.
It started with words.
Exactly. For years before the extermination camps, about 8 years, there was relentless propaganda dehumanizing Jews and other minorities. Discriminatory laws were passed, step by step. Neighbors were encouraged to report on neighbors. The Holocaust Museum puts it starkly. What ended in death camps began much earlier with ideas and words.
So what's the pattern of escalation we should be aware of, based on historical examples?
Our sources often outline a progression. First, you create hostility towards a minority group through rhetoric. Second, you gradually strip away their rights through laws, often presenting each step as reasonable or necessary. Third, once that group is sufficiently dehumanized and marginalized, more severe actions become thinkable, even justifiable to some.
And language is crucial throughout that process. Words like pedophile, sick, threat to children.
They're incredibly potent. Our sources stress that using such labels isn't just expressing an opinion, it's actively sowing the seeds for future persecution. It normalizes hatred, frames entire groups as dangerous.
Which really puts that quote from the Budapest Pride organizers, "This is fascism," into sharp focus. How do the sources interpret that claim in this context?
They suggest it's not about whether someone is wearing a specific uniform or armband. It's about the tactics. Using state power to attack a peaceful minority, scapegoating them for broader societal problems, actively trying to erase their existence from public view, these are seen as classic hallmarks of fascist strategy, according to many historical analyses.
And the concern is that it might not stop with LGBTQ+ people.
That's a key point raised. While LGBTQ+ individuals might be the primary target today in these specific campaigns, the playbook can be easily adapted. Tomorrow, it could be migrants or women fighting for reproductive rights or ethnic or religious minorities. The pattern of identifying an other, demonizing them, and consolidating power often repeats.
You see a convergence of these hatreds in far-right rhetoric globally, don't you?
Very much so. Homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, they often overlap and reinforce each other within these movements.
So given all this, what's the main message about vigilance?
The sources really emphasize that indifference is dangerous. The fascism of the 21st century might use different slogans, different scapegoats, but the way it starts with words, with dehumanization, with the gradual erosion of rights can look disturbingly familiar. Words have consequences. Marginalization today can pave the way for something much worse tomorrow if it goes unchallenged.
It's a sobering analysis. But let's not forget that counter-narrative from Budapest. those 200,000 people marching despite everything.
Absolutely. That massive turnout in the face of explicit bans and a climate of fear is itself a powerful statement, a demonstration of resilience, dignity, and hope pushing back against authoritarian trends. It shows resistance is possible.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive really highlights a disturbing and apparently coordinated international trend. Governments and political movements weaponizing child protection to roll back LGBTQ plus rights and stifle dissent, often following a Russian playbook.
That's the core insight, yes. And the unifying thread is often that rhetoric of, God, homeland, family used to justify excluding minorities. We see these connections running between Budapest, Moscow, Madrid, Washington, and elsewhere.
It leaves us with a lot to think about.
Indeed. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener. If history teaches us that words and this slow chipping away at rights can lead down a very dangerous path, how vigilant do we need to be about confronting this kind of rhetoric when we encounter it, perhaps even in our own communities? What's our responsibility in recognizing and resisting these coordinated efforts against pluralism and democratic values? How can understanding the global links maybe empower you to stand up for freedoms, not just for some, but truly for everyone?